So they don't give because you have a goal. You're like, my goal is $40,000. Please give, right? It's not enough to me to the issue, right? So if you want to inspire people to give, move away from the reasons they don't give, move towards the reasons that they do give. And then something else that you could do, as Caitlin was just saying, is use these reasons as a diagnostic tool for why you're losing donors year over year. So, are you helping people feel like they belong? Are you giving them a reason to feel like this would be a good place to put down roots and start their legacy? And if the answer is no, then you have a leaky bucket and you know where to start and where to fix it.
Hi, friends! Ever wondered how you could turn your big ideas into results? Together, let's reimagine a better sector, tackle systemic issues, and yes, raise some serious cash. Welcome back to The Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. I'm your host, Maria Rio. And if you're new here, I'm a fundraising expert with over a decade of experience helping EDs like you raise more funds. Today, we're going to be talking about the 8 main reasons people give. And to do that, I have Caitlin. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Maria. And if you're new here, I'm Caitlin McBride. I'm a certified fundraising executive, also with over a decade of experience. And I'm really on a mission to make fundraising feel less chaotic and more doable for nonprofits and EDs. Let's jump in.
I am actually really excited about this topic because currently Caitlin and I have a client that is thinking about getting their charitable status because they feel, hey, if we have a charitable status, like we'll be able to issue receipts. That's the rule in Canada where we're from, which is a great reason why people give, but it's only 1 out of 8 that we've identified. And today we're going to do a deep dive on how you can actually get people to give you their money and also to become invested in your cause and why people choose to do that. So Keelan, what do you think about this topic? Do you think it's something that a lot of people already know?
Really love this topic as well because I feel like sometimes this is a source of frustration for organizations. They're like, but we're such a great cause, like we do great work. Why aren't people giving? And I've been in organizations with like really like heart-wrenching causes, like a lot of like pediatric oncology organizations and things like that. And there was this real question of like, well, why aren't people giving to us if we're doing this great work? Yes, you're doing great work, but also there are 1.9 million charities in the States and 86,000 charities in Canada. So there are literally millions of other organizations out there that are also doing great work. So it's all about why are they donating to you or why should they donate to you and the reasons why people will and why they won't donate to you. So I'm excited to dive in.
Okay, so let's start with the reasons why people give time and money, but I definitely want to circle back to why people don't give because nonprofits are always putting out this messaging and then it falls a little bit flat. So, what's your favorite reason of why people get involved?
My favorite reason is really when they have a personal connection to the cause. Like, I think that is something that is just so special when that happens. I feel like it gives fundraising like the reason why I love it so much, which is an opportunity for people to be connected to causes they care about and to make changes that they want to see in the world. That is the reason why donors will stick with an organization for a long time as well. There are definitely like other reasons, but I think having that personal connection, if you have a donor who has personal connection to your cause, who like they've been supported by the work that you do, they know somebody who's been supported by the work that you do, then you have a much longer and a much deeper relationship and probably a pretty values aligned relationship as well. So that's my favorite. When somebody comes in and they're like, we've seen what you do. It's affected our personal life. It's affected this person in our life. Like, that's really beautiful. I love that relationship. What about you?
So, I love that reason as well. I think it's not my favorite. I'll get into my favorite a little bit later, but I do love this reason because I myself have a personal connection to the cause, right? Like I experienced food insecurity, I went to food banks, I lived in a World Vision refugee shelter. So connection as a service user actually fueled my whole career. So I like see it as a key part of why I give back because of a personal connection, right? So it's interesting too because these not only point to why donors give, but also why your staff is involved, why your volunteers are around. So like knowing these reasons will actually help you better understand the people around you and help them make that impact that they want to see in the world. So personal connection is a great one. Another one that I really love is people give because they want to belong. So they want to feel like they're connected to a group of like minded individuals. And it also reinforces their donor identity, their social identity. Like, I'm a generous person. I belong in the generous people club. Or I'm someone who cares about others. I belong in the caring about others club, right? So they want to belong to a community that cares about others, that wants to turn the world into a better place, that they're willing to put in their time, money, blood, sweat, and tears into making it happen. And they believe in the same thing that is attracting you to that organization. So it's kind of like signaling to others, this is our beliefs. We belong together. So I think that that's a really good one.
Yeah, that one's great. And this is the reason why I love fundraising and I love doing this. So many people, maybe want to be part of this group, want to reaffirm that identity in themselves, but maybe don't have time to go and volunteer with an environmentalist organization or, something else that you really strongly believe in or you want to be part of, or yeah, reaffirms that social identity. But maybe you have $20 that you can give at year end. So it really like allows you to connect yourself to that cause and be part of that community. Do you have a second favorite?
I don't know if I have a second favorite, but what I do really find really interesting is this other reason of being asked by a friend, right? So we've gone through a few ones. We have you get a tax receipt, you have a personal connection, you want to belong. This one is you're asked by a friend. So this is why peer to peer is so strong. There's so many good stats around peer to peer as well. I'm just pulling some up right now so I can share them with the podcast listeners. GoFundMe Pro, Classy, reported that 80% of people who donated to a peer-to-peer campaign are brand new to the organization. So it's a really good tool to bring people in quickly. But not only that, like people feel a little bit more interested because they want to belong with their friends, right? So a little bit of that in the work that you're doing. And also they're more interested in supporting because they feel like it's an extension of supporting their friend, which is great in getting people in through the door, but a little bit challenging in retaining them, which is why peer to peer requires so much stewardship. It's a very powerful tool that's often underutilized.
Yeah, that's a really cool one. I feel like we started with the ones that have like the strongest like intrinsic connection and where it is quote unquote like easier to retain those donors and like have them feel connected to your community. And now maybe we're moving into the ones where like as you mentioned, you have to do a bit more stewardship to bring them into community because yes, I've been asked by friends and everything to donate. And sometimes I will continue to donate to that organization. And sometimes I'm like, I donated one time and that was because you're doing a run and like I'm not actually interested in supporting this cause long term. The work that you have to do to convert somebody from a peer-to-peer supporter to like a long-term supporter is a little bit more effort, but it can definitely be worth it. And I love that, yeah, peer-to-peer can really be a great like introduction to an organization that you've never heard about before. But yeah, there's definitely, there's more onus on the charity to do that work and bring them into the world.
And if our listeners haven't been exposed to peer as much, something that I would say is that think about the last time you bought something from a social media influencer. That's a parasocial relationship, right? So we're more likely to buy from the influencers that we like. That's why they are advertising to us in this manner, right? So imagine that times 100 when it's your cousin that's asking you to donate, or purchase something. It just becomes a really more engaging way to build that trust and to get people in through the door. But let's move on to another reason why people give.
Let's talk about tax receipts.
So that is the reason that we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, because a lot of nonprofits use it as a last minute urgency builder, right? Which it does work to build some urgency and people do want the tax receipt. But this is one of the reasons why people give is because they receive something in return. In this case, a tax receipt, sometimes sponsorship benefits, networking opportunities, event tickets, anything like that. So they're giving to get something tangible back.
Yeah, and this is definitely a reason, we try to, in our practice and the work that we do with our clients, we try to have things like this sort of getting something in return as like an added benefit. Like it's an extra, but really like you want the donors who give relationally rather than transactionally. This is very much a kind of, yeah, you get an event ticket, you get recognition, you get something else, which is not really what fundraising is. Fundraising is building that relationship. And then, yeah, as like an add-on extra, you can get some tax benefits or you can like come to our event and everything. So it's one of the reasons for sure. It does create a much more transactional relationship than the other reasons that we talked about before, which is, being asked by a friend, having a personal connection, wanting to belong to a community. So when we do that push at the end of the year for, oh, get your tax receipt and everything, like we've built that relational component already. And now we're kind of adding in, and also you get a tax receipt. So it's not relying on that. And I try not to rely on that when I'm pitching or like when I'm talking about giving, because as we mentioned, there are literally millions of other organizations that can give you tax receipts. So like you have to build that relationship and have them understand why they're giving to yours.
Okay, so there's two examples that come to mind that are also a little bit transactional, but I like a little bit more than using a tax receipt to fundraise. One of them is this thing that taps into a cognitive bias of when we receive something, we want to give something back. That's why waiters give you so many candies when you're done your meal, right? Because they want you to give them a tip. Similarly, when you get a direct mail piece and it has a magnet or a sticker or something like that, that's really effective in triggering the same feelings of the tax receipt. Like I get something in return, but it just is a different, more relational approach to something that can be quite transactional.
That's true. And that's a really good point. And I love that you gave that example. I was just thinking of this in context of things like an end of year campaign and like Giving Tuesday. And a tactic that I used to use quite a bit and still love to use is actually flipping Giving Tuesday on its head and giving something to our community on Giving Tuesday, because that's often when the end of year campaign kind of kicks off. So, we send out like a kid's favorite recipe or something on Giving Tuesday. Like it can be something really small. It doesn't have to be a magnet sent to your whole audience. But yeah, it does trigger that kind of like, they've given me something, I want to give something in return, that kind of thing. So that's a good example.
I started reading this book about how relationships were actually started to be formed through gift giving and how important culturally it can be. So, like a small, tiny gift, it makes sense why it kicks in our cognitive bias to give back because that's how humans used to survive, right? We didn't live in cities and in fancy buildings, right? Like we used to have to hunt together and, I'll give you animal hide and you give me a little bit of meat. So it was a survival tactic. But another example that I've seen that is really interesting, and I haven't seen this very often, is when the nonprofit's actually providing a service in exchange for the donation. So the example that I'm thinking of is basically if you lose your keys, there's a little key tag on your keys that then gets mailed to the nonprofit who mails you back your keys. So it's like a very weird thing, but basically it was for this organization that had fulfilled their mission and they're kind of like now fundraising for research for other things. But they had this fundraising strategy where they were basically key holders for all their donors, right? If you lose your keys, your tag will get them mailed to us and then we'll send them back to you.
That's a really interesting strategy. I think I just always like to warn or like caveat around service for donation because, in terms of it being a charitable donation, like technically, like if you're giving tax receipts, they can't get anything in return. A lot of people don't know that. And they're like, well, we'll provide this service and then we'll also like give them a tax receipt. Like, no, technically, if you're making a donation and you're getting tax benefits from it, you also can't be getting anything else in return. So you can't like buy an event ticket and go to an event and then get a tax receipt for that event ticket because you've already gotten the experience of going to an event in exchange for your money. So just one caveat. But the example that you gave there, I think works really well because it's kind of a service, but it's also not a service that you use all the time. And it's not a direct give us some money or we won't give you your key back, that kind of thing.
Very clever, but very random. So I think that there's opportunities like that that people might have. And I just wanted to share that one. I've never done that myself, but just thinking about how to tap into these 8 ways of giving, right? Let's move on to the next one. They want to create a legacy. This is your planned gift giver.
This is like the deep relationship. This is the people who believe so much in your mission and so much in your organization that they are thinking very long term and they want to make sure that it continues like long after they're gone. Maybe they're not somebody who is donating a significant amount at this point in time. A lot of legacy givers are actually monthly donors and they may not have, the income to be able to give to a charity significant amounts during their lifetime, but as part of their estate, they've been as a monthly donor, there's somebody who is committed and, they really appreciate your cause. They appreciate the work that you're doing. And, that commitment then translates into as you said, like a legacy. Like they want to continue this change even after they're gone. So this is really, really solid relationship work here.
Definitely your monthly donors, your volunteers, basically anyone that you know who wants to be remembered for contributing to positive social change. They want to be remembered for having this lasting impact. These are those kind of people. They want to create a legacy. What's the next one, Caitlin?
Okay, now we're moving into the kind of like obligation. There's like definitely givers who give because they feel guilty or obligated. Sometimes there's like social pressure or religious teachings, or like have also things like awareness of their privilege. If you're talking to elderly people or vulnerable people, there's a lot of guilt tactics and obligation tactics and pressure tactics that are used. It does make people give. Do I promote that? And do I think that's the right thing to do? No.
And I think this has fallen out of favor as a fundraising tactic because we definitely used to see it a lot in speaking about World Vision earlier in international development ads. It's definitely a tactic that used to be really effective in soliciting that first time gift. But if you've noticed, a lot of international development organizations have moved their marketing away from guilt to hope because hope gets you that second, third, fourth gift. Guilt only gets you that first gift. So it's effective in getting that gift in through the door that day, but it doesn't build those relationships, right? Because who wants to hang out with someone who's always making them feel guilty or pressured, right? And same thing with the religious teaching sides. There's so many cultures that say like you have to give 5 to 10% of your total revenue for the year to an organization or community of your choice, depending on the religion, right? So it's a key part of being a good Christian, a good Muslim, a good member of your community to be giving back in that way. So even if people might not personally believe in it, they want to be a good community member and they may feel a little bit obligated to give.
Okay, another reason that we've got on our list is responding to urgency. So, crisis situations, if there's something happening in the world that people are responding to, if there's an urgent need, then yeah, that is a huge reason for people to donate. Also, a little bit of like a deadline. Like, I'm a kind of person, I need a deadline. So, things like matching gift deadlines or like time sensitive campaigns. So, we all know and sorry, we're recording this at the peak end of year season. So, we've got end of year on the brain, but thinking about like end of year, we have the tax deadline or like the end of year deadline of like December 31st.
Or even thinking about like other urgency situations, like a mass catastrophe, like a flood or something like that, I would encourage people to give because they're reacting to a situation that's urgent, right? So they see that as well. Okay, we're almost at our last reason why people give. Okay. And the last one is less exciting than the first few, but it is one that I do hear from donors who have been engaged with organizations for a long, long time. They give because it's become a habit. So maybe they had an original motivation that made them feel more connected, and maybe that's gone. So let's say they were friends with the ED, that ED asked them to give 5 years in a row and then stopped asking them. They're not super close anymore. It's been 10 years, but they still give every single year. That's the kind of donors that we're talking about here. Like they just, yeah, I like the work. It's good. Whatever. I do it every year. They don't have more additional things to say there, but it is a motivation to give. So how you talk to them specifically is, hey, like you've been giving for 5 years. Like we're hoping to count on your support again this year.
Yeah, I think really sharing that gratitude with those donors is so important. As you said, even after that original motivation may have like waned, you've still built up enough trust with them for them to continue donating. Like, especially if they are like just writing you a check every year, like that's an active thing. It's not a passive thing, like a monthly gift that just keeps on coming out of their account. So if somebody is still like picking up a pen and writing you a check, then you still have that trust and belief in the work that you're doing, even if it is a bit more habit than anything else. Don't forget about them. Those habit donors are so important. I feel like a lot of, we've talked about these 8 reasons, but I feel like a lot of the time it's a mix. It's never just one. It's a mix of all of these things, right? Like there's always going to be a few different reasons why they donate. And I think donors also need those multiple reasons and those kind of, it all kind of comes together as one. Maybe they were asked by a friend, they want to belong, and there's a campaign deadline. And that all translates into actually taking action and making a contribution.
And that's what turns a good fundraiser into a great fundraiser. You know that there's different threads that you can actually pull and how to pull them in a way that is aligned with your organizational values and aligned with the principles of community-centered fundraising, right? But just as a quick overview, our 8 reasons are: they were asked by a friend, they have a personal connection, they want to belong, they want to create a legacy, they feel guilty or obligated, they receive something in return, they're responding to urgency, or it's become a habit. But let me tell you, they don't give because it's your 50th anniversary. They don't care about that. That was not any of the reasons, right? Maybe there's an urgency situation, but really try to tie it back to beliefs and like that core motivation, right? So the 50th anniversary is not going to be a huge motivation for them. If you tell them your story from 40 years ago, we started in a church by 2 nuns, that's probably not going to inspire them to give. It's interesting, depends on the story, but it's probably not going to be the main reason why someone is giving today. And another reason why people don't give is because you haven't told them about the impact that you're making. Maybe you're only asking for solicitation and they never hear about the actual stories and people, right? So they don't hear from you and they don't have anything to intrinsically motivate them if they don't know what you're doing, right? So they don't hear from you and they can't move forward.
I've seen so many organizations who are like, well, we're turning 50 next year, so we should raise like $50,000. I'm like, that's not a thing. You have to have a reason for raising that $50,000 that relates to your program and to your mission, like not just because like it's my birthday. So I think that's really important to point out. I always say that, an anniversary is a reason to celebrate. It's not a reason to donate. But also, I really liked what you said about your beginnings as a humble organization. Like, if you're starting anything with, we were founded in 1999, like your audience is already tuned out. We don't care what you did in 1999. What are you doing right now? There are so many things going on in the world right now where people need support. Doesn't matter how you started, what happened. What are you doing right now? Talk about that. And then maybe you can kind of bring it into more context of why you started. But yeah, that's kind of origin story is more important to the organization than anyone else. If you're not telling them the impact, like if the last time that you talked to them was asking them for money, they're not donating again. So that's really why you see like the donor attrition there. So if you're seeing like people who are not coming back year over year, think about the last time you talked to them. The last time was just an ask, then you're not giving them anything in between. I think it's something like a donor needs 8 touch points before they'll make another donation. And those touch points can be like a newsletter or a social media post or like a thank you call or an impact report, any of those things throughout the year or throughout however long until you make an ask. But if you haven't made those 8 touch points, you don't get to make another ask. That's always the rule that I follow.
Okay, I thought of one more. So they don't give because you have a goal. You're like, my goal is $40,000. Please give, right? It's not enough to meet to the issue, right? So if you want to inspire people to give, move away from the reasons they don't give, move towards the reasons that they do give. And then something else that you could do, as Caitlin was just saying, is use these reasons as a diagnostic tool for why you're losing donors year over year. So are you helping people feel like they belong? Are you giving them a reason to feel like this would be a good place to put down roots and start their legacy? And if the answer is no, then you have a leaky bucket and you know where to start and where to fix it. That is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about the 8 main reasons people give time or money. I would love to hear if you have more because this is a learning journey. We're all in this together. Like always, if you'd like to watch this episode on YouTube, you can go ahead and do that there and see our lovely faces. Please comment, subscribe, and like it over there and tell the algorithm that you want more content like this. Good luck with your fundraising. Tell us how it goes, and we'll see you here next week. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.